Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Note to File podcast, a collection of interviews, best practices, and candid commentary for clinical research sites. Our guest today is a little bit off the beaten path. She's not worked at a clinical research site. Our guest is Brandy Bailey. She's the Director of Strategic Growth for SendaRide, has a bachelor's degree in Business Administration from Northeastern State University, and a master's degree in gerontology from the University of Central Oklahoma. She's also currently pursuing her second graduate degree, a master's in Business Administration from Southeastern Oklahoma State University. The reason we brought Brandy on the show is she works for this company, SendaRide. They provide medical transportation, not just for clinical research sites, but for all kinds of different organizations. But her organization has been a big boon for us as a clinical research site. It's helped us increase enrollment and retention across a bunch of our studies. So really the takeaway here is that if you are a research site, you need to be partnering with groups like this who can help you and you can help them. You're providing a very symbiotic relationship. But in your community, there's probably people like SendaRide. If not, reach out directly to SendaRide. They've been nothing but a great company to work for. That's the reason I brought her on the show. So without further ado, Brandy Bailey. All right, Brandy, thanks so much for joining me this morning. What is today? August 28th. It's nice to have somebody locally here on. I think you're our first, other person in Oklahoma City that's been on the podcast.
All right. A special distinction. I appreciate that.
That's right. We're trying to, us Okies have to stick together,
That's right.
So this is a little bit of a, deviation from what we normally do here. So you are not a site, research site staff, but I think what you do provides a lot of value to clinical research and even specifically to our sites. So I guess, just sort of to begin, I usually ask our people how they got involved in clinical research. So we'll mix it up a little bit and just tell me a little bit about your interest in clinical research.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of share this with you today. My education actually, so my background is a bachelor's in Business Administration and a master's in gerontology. And ironically, so I'm working on my second graduate degree, which is Business Administration, and I'm taking managerial analytics. And so I'm having to do a crash course in statistics. So I'm hoping that perhaps as a side venture, you also offer tutoring, because I am finding that statistics I'm having to go back to the drawing board and do some studying there. But that being said, professionally, my background has largely been in the development and operations of just innovative healthcare models. I truly believe that the future of healthcare really does lie in the continued evolution of our healthcare business models. And I love the idea of becoming more aligned with supporting the outcomes versus those fee-for-service models. So with that in mind, as we continue to evolve our protocols for treatment, and especially those that embrace that holistic care approach, we have to take into consideration the patient's environments in which they live, their social conditions, mental and physical health. So I believe that the innovation of healthcare directly intersects with clinical research, because your work facilitates outcome-based care by helping us find the most efficient and the most effective way to treat the patient's condition. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is about providing the highest quality of life for patients. And that means giving them access to more effective treatments. And so that's really why I love partnering with clinical research, because it really does support that growth and that evolution in healthcare and in the way we treat patients.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It is a very holistic approach. And, obviously it's a good segue into what you're doing now and how that contributes to the greater clinical research and just quality of life for patients. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So after many years working in population health and innovative CMS kind of payment models, I just recently transitioned to SendaRide. So my title is Director of Strategic Growth. But the interesting thing is I was a customer of SendaRide for years back in my former life as a healthcare CEO. I recently joined the SendaRide team because I love being able to impact healthcare and patient outcomes on a larger scale. So my goal with SendaRide is to align strategically with organizations whose business model would necessitate patient access. And that brings us to organizations like clinical research. So, we know that recruitment and retention of patients can be difficult, and especially a lot of the clinical trials do target older adults that have those mobility challenges or those socioeconomic challenges that prevent them from having that transportation component. So with SendaRide, we're really uniquely positioned to support clinical trial organizations because we have a software as a solution platform that is uniquely designed to meet those needs, as well as meeting the needs of the clinical sponsor, which include the HIPAA compliance, the ease of use, OIG compliance, and just all of those things that we have to be worried about in the healthcare realm. So that's kind of how I found my way to SendaRide. And I love telling that story because I think it says a lot whenever you're a customer of an organization and then you come over to the team. It really goes to show the service that I received and just kind of the credibility of the organization, that it was such that I was felt comfortable making that transition from my current organization over to here to just continue to serve that mission.
Yeah, no, I think definitely says a lot about the company. And I know just in our experiences, as a research site, this is a problem that exists, is getting people in the door. And, what SendaRide's made some huge increases in our recruitment and our retention. I mean, everyone we've funneled through SendaRide has, we've retained. We've not lost anyone who's been in our studies that we've offered rides through SendaRide with. That's a ridiculously easy program or a website to use as far as getting our stuff scheduled. Patient rides have been reliable. If you're a clinical research site, you should be partnering with SendaRide. Are you guys sort of expanding your markets? Where are you guys right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, thank you for the compliments. We definitely want to make sure that our services are easy to use and reliable. I think that's the key, especially with clinical trial research, is that you have to be able to rely on your volunteers, your patients, to be there when you need them. Your outcomes depend on it, as do theirs. So I appreciate that. But right now, so we started here, as you said, I'm an Okie girl. We started here in Oklahoma City, and we were started by a healthcare attorney here in the area. So we're currently serving the majority of Oklahoma, especially the metro areas like Oklahoma City and Tulsa. We are also serving in Texas and all the major metropolitan areas that you would expect: the Houston, Galveston, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, Decatur. We're working on abilities to expand right now into Lubbock and also into El Paso. So working on that and just kind of really saturating the space there in Texas. And then part of my role is to help grow us into other states. So I have kind of a laundry list of states that are our next launching points. And then definitely top of that list would be Florida, Kansas, Colorado, Ohio. So really we have a list of areas that we want to target, but if there's an organization that has a need, we can get up and running in that target area very, very quickly. So as individuals reach out to us or we reach out to them and we're able to establish a business use, then we can partner very quickly with that organization and get up and running to start meeting their needs right away.
Yeah, and that's huge. So, again, if you're a research site, research network, I definitely recommend reaching out to SendaRide. They've been, a lifesaver for us. And, these are things you should be able to get covered by a study sponsor. As again, just as a tip, as a research site, if they're not covering the cost of transportation, go renegotiate your budget. It should be an easy pass-through cost. Sponsors want subjects in their trial and they want them retained. So whatever you can do to do that, they're usually willing to pay for. And again, I've tried using other ride companies, and there's been huge glitches with other companies I've tried to use. So again, this is sort of my, this is my personal stamp of approval on SendaRide, if you will, for whatever that's worth. So if you're a research site, even if they're not in your area now, I think it's worth reaching out to see if, there's a good opportunity to partner there.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I too had a similar experience. So when I used SendaRide for years as a healthcare CEO, one of the unique things about the kind of healthcare I did is it was full risk bearing. So that meant that if there was a negative outcome that occurred with my patients, I paid the bill. So I was hugely incentivized just from a moral and a fiduciary standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint to make sure that my patients stayed out of the hospital. So one of the challenges that I had in running my healthcare organization are patients who did not want to come to their medical appointments or unreliable transportation partners. And I had many hospitalizations related to patients that had really critical appointments like dialysis or other diagnostics where there was mix-ups or delays, and I just couldn't rely on the partners that I had at the time to make sure that my patients could get where they needed to get. And there's nothing more frustrating from a hospital partner standpoint when they're ready to discharge your patient and they're waiting 3 hours on a ride to get there to pick up your patient. And so it was causing me FaceTime, quite honestly, with my community partners. My partners were getting frustrated. My patients were getting frustrated, families frustrated, and me as well. And so I was paying for these services and just not having a good experience, not having reliability, and still having negative outcomes. And so when SendaRide came along, honestly, it was like a breath of fresh air because they met all of my regulatory requirements. They were HIPAA compliant, they were reliable, and I knew that if I booked a ride with SendaRide, my patient was going to get where they needed to get. And so that ultimately is part of what brought me here. Is it's really wonderful to be a part of an organization that truly delivers at an exceptional level. And so I'm so glad to hear that you have had such a great experience with your volunteers and your patients for your studies. That too has been my experience. And that's really what we hope to be able to bring to clinical trial partners is that reliability, that level of service, that ability to call and immediately get somebody on the phone if you have any questions. We're available. It's not like a large conglomerate where you can't get through to anyone. And additionally, we truly try to be partners. And so one of the things that I like to do as well is assist with resources. So a great example is there's a clinical trial group that I'm working with here in Oklahoma that approached that had a need for somebody to go out and do lab draws, right? But they're busy. They're in the heat of their study. They're actually doing a phase 3 Moderna COVID trial right now. And they said, I don't really have time to run this down. Can you help me? And I was able to bring to them a really reliable home health partner that could help them with going out into the community and doing their lab draws and doing their COVID tests. And so I like to do that to help with patient recruitment, to also help bring resources. And so I think that's just another thing that I want to share is just that ability to have a true collaborative partner with SendaRide. That's not only going to get your patients there, but that's invested in your outcomes and wants to help you at all costs.
Yeah, no, that's huge that it's, not just a purely transactional relationship. I mean, you really are building a bigger partnership. And that, again, that goes a long way if you're a small research site that, needs that sort of, help as much as you can offer. And that's a really cool idea, just as an aside, having the ability to run labs or even a person to go draw labs sort of remotely. So that's an interesting sort of synergy there that you guys came up with.
Yeah. And it's definitely, so again, our goal is to be as supportive as we can possibly be to our partners. And when there's a need, we try to be very agile in meeting all of those needs. And so when the information came forward that our partners needed help with patient recruitment, then we're here for that. If they need help with getting labs or delivering medications or whatever it is, then we can courier things and not just people. One of the other things too that we have is a great data system as well. And so we can also help our partners with collecting data very easily, which we know is a huge part of what you do and having to document and generate your outcomes. So we have that dashboard as well that's really user-friendly that allows you to pull all of your data and run the analytics. So yeah, SendaRide is our goal again is just to be that very high-level collaborative partner, not just focusing on the transaction as you mentioned, but just on the relationship as a whole.
Very good. So again, knowing that, you're not necessarily directly from a research site, but, what's a best practice or some best practices that you'd share with people maybe in the broader healthcare community, if not clinical research specifically?
Yeah. For me, I think one of the best practices that I have always engaged is networking and partnerships. It truly is such a small world in healthcare, and I'm finding it's a small world in clinical trial research as well. And we all interact with each other. And so networking, building relationships, and just being a friend, helping each other any way and anywhere we can. I really love, and that's part of why I love the Note to File and why I begged you to be a part of it, because I love this format because I think it's wonderful in that you said something to me that was really powerful. You said, there's enough trials to go around, right? There's sadly, we have enough medical need. There's enough trials to go around. And so with that, there's no reason not to share best practices and not to share what we've learned. And I love that on your note to file, you share software solutions, you share tips, tricks, whatever it is, because overall, it's just a very selfless endeavor of trying to help the next man succeed. And I'm a big supporter of Note to File and of other opportunities like that, where we can share what we know, we can support one another's success, because ultimately, then it helps the patient be more successful and gives them a higher quality of life. And that's really what it's all about. I think at the end of the day, whether you're in clinical research or whether you're in healthcare, you are motivated to help your community. You're motivated to help people in general. And so when we're able to work together and pool our resources and we're able to leverage things like Note to File, and we're able to leverage opportunities to network and to connect, then we can do just that. We can really help evolve at a much faster rate. I would also say data is key, as with everything. I'm a huge proponent of managing by metrics and not anecdotally. And so whether you're managing a case study or whether you're managing a healthcare organization, whatever it is, you have to have a really good data analysis tool. And so my 2 words of advice would be: work your networks, establish great relationships, be a great partner, and always keep your eye on the data.
Yeah, that's very well said. I mean, I think, again, we sort of suffer specifically in the clinical research world and, this sort of scarcity mindset. Like, if I share information with you, then, I'm giving something away that, I need to keep my hands on. And again, I think I'm a broken record. The networking is very undervalued, I think, in clinical trials. We should all be learning from each other. So I think that's what I'm trying to sort of foster as much as possible across the clinical research community. And even with our relationship with SendaRide, we've been able to share a lot of even networking opportunities with, other research sites and things like that. So, and again, that's where we're all going. We all want to help. We all want to help patients. We all want to make a better, healthier world, so I think we should be as much free flow of information as we can have, the better. Very cool. And obviously data is obviously super important in clinical research. We deal in, objective data. So the better quality your data is, again, the better outcomes we have for everyone, whether that be on the research side or even in your, own business metrics. Again, something that I don't know is always very highly valued as a clinical research site. They're not oftentimes run quite as a business, maybe to that degree. So that's something, again, that's a great value you guys bring to these research sites.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very awesome. So what are some resources that you use that you find indispensable in what you do, and even things that might, again, sort of apply to the broader research community?
Yeah, so I have a longstanding love affair with Excel. So I am a self-proclaimed data geek. And in my healthcare background, a lot of the healthcare organizations that I ran were government funded or not, a non-for-profit. And, you're always operating on just a shoestring budget. And so I know there's a lot of really kind of sexy tools out there, but I could never afford those sexy tools. So I have, again, a longstanding love affair with Excel, where I just love to capture data and I analyze every single aspect. I just am one of those people that believe that the devil is in the details. And I love to create dashboards and metrics that help me constantly grow and improve my performance, but also help me grow my team and help grow them in a very meaningful and targeted way. So I know Excel is kind of an old thing, but the next kind of level that I've grown into that I really enjoy, and I think it's just super cool, and I still have a lot to learn about it, but I love leveraging Tableau as well. And so you can share your Excel documents and your data into Tableau and really create these wonderful interactive dashboards. So that's been something that I have really enjoyed as well in terms of kind of resources that I think are very valuable. But again, kind of back to our networking discussion and just the importance of lifting one another up and sharing best practices. I wouldn't discount LinkedIn either as an opportunity to network and get to know other individuals, because you never know when you're going to find yourself in a dilemma where it would be great to have a friend to call on or a colleague to call on to bounce an idea or to get some support. So I would definitely say in regards to the things that are most important to me and how to run any organization, whether it's specifically healthcare or clinical trials, I definitely think the Excel and Tableau partnership, as well as kind of that LinkedIn to support your networking.
Yeah, I think a lot of research sites do still, use Excel to track a lot of their day-to-day and patient visits. We're slowly moving away from that into these more sophisticated clinical trial management systems. But like you say, I mean, not everybody can afford that. Those things get pricey in time. So, I've actually not used Tableau, but that's a good resource that, I'll look into as well. And if you're a site that operates off of Excel, that might be a good option for you. And to speak about LinkedIn, I mean, honestly, that's really the only social network I utilize. And I've made a ton of valuable connections through LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn and you're not, trying to use it to learn from other people, then you're doing it wrong. Use that. That's a great tool in your, tool belt, if you will. So I love that. I love that piece of advice. Well, very cool. I wanted to, again, thank you very much for coming on. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, again, thanks for having me. You can find us online at SendaRide.com, and it is spelled just like it sounds, SendaRide.com. You're welcome to reach out to me directly. I would love to communicate with any of you at all, even if it's just to say hello and have a virtual introduction. You can reach me at brandy.bailey@sendaride.com, and that's Brandy with a Y. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. So I would love to just meet you, learn about the trials you're working on, and if there's an opportunity to partner with you, that's wonderful. If not, then I'm always open for more friendships and colleagues.
Absolutely. We'll make sure we put that information in our show notes. I'd definitely recommend reaching out to Brandy. I've had some meetings with SendaRide, and even they've helped bring some things to light that, kind of made me look at our organization differently, or some things that we may implement over time. So even, again, like she said, if you don't have an immediate need, there are some things that still be useful. Never hurts to have another friend out there, does it?
It does not. Absolutely.
All right, Brandy, thanks again. And we'll see you next time.
Sounds great. Thanks, Brad.
As always, thank you for listening to the Note to File podcast. Please check us out at notetofilepodcast.com for full episode transcripts, show notes, and contact information for our guests. Thanks again.